So this also used for their mouth.
Mouse tugging. Hello， 大家好，我小钟啊。提起西非，大家都会想到几个有名的海岸：黄金海岸、象牙海岸，当然还有最臭名昭著的奴隶海岸。那我们现在呢是来到了尼日利亚的巴达格瑞，这里呢是跨大西洋三角贸易中的重要一环。数以万计的黑人奴隶从这里登船前往美洲。在整个黑奴贸易的400年间，非洲总共损失了2亿多人。今天呢就跟着小钟一起去实地了解一下这条黑暗的奴隶贸易之路吧。大家先赞后看，跟着小钟一起出发吧。
You're welcome to Badagry.
Yeah.
So the museum is all about slave trade. Before 1445, Europeans came to West Africa. They came with gunpowder, mirror, wine, umbrella, packet matches, ceramic bowl, and some clothing materials. So all these were used in enslaved the West African to the West Indies, that is Caribbean island. So the West Africa were divided into 4 coasts. You have the Great Coast, Ivory Coast, Gold Coast, and Slave Coast.
这就是他们去抓那些奴隶的时候，在农田里面就把他们给抓了。For this soldier, he's like an African.
The Africans,
So African captured the African.
Africa, yeah.
Why?
It's like a business, it's trade. Europeans stay at the coast area here, where the people at the hinterland over there, your Ibadan, raid themselves, catch themselves.
Okay. 就是他们就是一些大的奴隶贸易商人啊，上面写的是 Captain John Hawkins is the first English slave dealer to carry slave from West Africa。这个就是当时贩奴的船的一个原型。So they make the bottom much bigger because they want to carry more.
Yes, very inside.
大家也可以看一下，这个船舱里面是分了好多层的，1层、2层、3层、4层，它可能还不止呢。你看每一层都有很多人，然后每一层就像这样尸体一样的平躺在上面，真的是挺震撼的。这是当时奴隶被关在船舱里的场景啊。这个是抓的一些小孩，就这样子捆在一起，然后一个船舱里面会捆很多人。所以这里还是有黑色星期五的一个售卖的广告啊，然后都是明码标价。他们做这个奴隶贸易的利润是相当高的，700%到1000啊。
The African women who were forced
Oh.
to give up their children and breastfeed the white babies.
他们就会抓一些可能比较健康的一些黑人女性代替白人女性去哺乳啊。那我们现在呢也是来到了另一个博物馆啊，叫做 Mobi Royal Family。就是这个 Mobi 呢，他之前也是贩奴的一个黑人啊，他是一个当地的酋长。
So these are the original chains from our forefathers.
Yes.
During days of slave trade.
Uh-huh.
And this chain was brought by the white men to here around 15th century ago.
15th century. This chain.
The neck lock.
我们来拿一下。哇，很重啊！
It also was made like this.
他就会把这个很重的链条绑在人的脖子上。
You want to try?
Yeah. 这个链条就是 like this.
Yeah. 18 hours
18
every day. Yeah.
18 hours.
Yeah, I must tell you.
With this one.
With this
Too heavy.
heavy.
哇。他就会把奴隶的脚，就是2个人的脚捆在一起。
The lucky to padlock and 2 of them.
So they cannot run.
So this also used for their mouth.
Mouse. Tugging. Are you sure?
Then I'll fix this.
Okay, so they will get in. They cannot eat, they cannot speak.
They cannot eat, they cannot talk.
哇，所以像他们那个奴隶，他们会带着那个铁链，他们会带上这个铁链之后，他们是手是 so they had like cough like this.
Yeah, at the back.
And if they want to drink water,
Open their mouth lock.
just like this.
They drink like animals, no
And
cup.
also that one is very heavy. In Badagry, is it the biggest port that export the slaves to Americans?
Yeah.
It's the biggest.
Largest.
Largest.
Yeah, which is this very slave port. Finally, this also talks about separation of the family. So what do they mean here? It means father will be sold to another merchant, mother will be sold to another, so they will never come across themselves.
They will separate the family.
They're like, yeah, separate them.
所以像这个船舱里面是挤了很多的人的，然后大家也知道，这种船舱密集空间里面，尤其是在海上，很多人他们晕船产生了一些呕吐物，一人生病的话就会导致很多人生病，死了的人呢，他们就直接扔向大海，所以这个死亡率也特别的高，差不多有1/3的人会死在路上。这就是当时的一个火炮，加农炮。So you say for this one can change how many slaves?
100 slaves. After the market day, they keep them there.
Oh, like the slave stock.
Yeah.
当时这个奴隶就是这样子被罩住的，头上戴了一个套子，脚上也是被锁住的。这就是他们当时集市上关押这个奴隶的一个场所。那我们现在是到了另一个博物馆啊，叫做 Brazilian Barracoon.
So the first person that bought this man is Abbas.
Abbas.
Abbas later on sold him to a white man called Williams. It was a Mr. Williams that took this man down to Brazil. When he was in Brazil, Williams taught him how to read and write.
Yeah.
And later on, he called the man, if you want me to release you, work for me. And the man told his master,
Whatever anything you want me to do, I'm ready to do it for you because I'm your slaves. And that's how he released him back to Nigeria and brought all these items to him.
Okay.
So that anybody that need any of the items will need to bring the slave down to this man.
Okay.
And this man will lock them inside the cell. So once Williams is in Nigeria, his own is to pack them to Brazil.
Okay.
So that's what he's doing for his master. He's like a middleman.
Middleman to help
So
him.
these are some European products they use in the exchange of slaves. A van of an umbrella, 40 slaves.
40.
Yes.
One umbrella.
Collect one umbrella from a white man. A bottle of gin, 10 slaves. The big kind of gun, 100 slaves. What do they use the kind of gun for? They use it to wage war within themselves in order for them to get more slaves so that they can sell to the white man. Mirror doesn't have a specific number. It's depending how you can bargain
Okay.
with the white people. Ceramic boat, 10 slaves. A dingo, 40 slaves. And these two entries we have here since 1840.
这把伞呢是当时他们欧洲人带过来买奴隶用的，换奴隶用的。这一把伞可以换40个奴隶。
And this one is called iron drilling bits.
Iron drilling bits.
They use it to write their name at the back of their slaves. If you are my masters, they will use this object to write John
Okay.
or JN to identify your slaves. This place we are now is called a waiting cell. 40 people are going to this room. And once the 40 people are in the room, there's a door here before they will lock up the door. This is where they wee and this is where they poo-poo. You can imagine how this place will be measured then.
I see。就这个小小的房间，它居然能够装40个人。
They will be chained also so that they will not escape through the roof. So many people died on their way.
这就是当时他们关奴隶的地方，上面都还有编号呢。就是这样一个房间，小小的房间可以关40个人。So each room 40
Slaves. So minimum of 1,600 slaves
in this compound.
into this compound.
就我们在这个小镇啊，走了很多的地方，很多人的墙上都有这样的一幅画，就是时刻的在提醒他们不要忘记历史。咱们现在呢是要重走这条奴隶之路啊 ，Slave Port。那现在咱们要坐船出发了。Here。似乎有点不好发动啊。咱们现在船长给这个发动机戴上套子，安全一点，不然要进水。So another side.
We are going to the point of no return.
We go straight to Benin. 这个就是可以直接到贝宁的。
Then go straight to Lagos.
这边是去 Lagos 的。他给我背过来了，我的天，我也没想到呀。OK，It's okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. 他这个还有这种职业，我是第一次的，还有背的，因为我穿的鞋子不好走啊，我得脱。
From Barracoon down to the slave port, they walk down to the Atlantic Ocean.
With a chain.
Arms, neck, and leg. So this is slave route.
Slave Road 这条奴隶之路，这里就是 Badagry Slave Road. This is the road of the journey to unknown destination. Original Slave
Where
Road.
we going?
Good morning.
How are you?
这提拔看到，这条路的确不好走啊，也全是山。You see, even now it's not easy for walking.
To walking and it's
But
hot.
it's hard. So at that time, they are chained. It's difficult.
The local people will take them down to the sea. No, the ship cannot come here.
Yeah, the small boat to the
People taking that little by little, and when the boat capsized,
Yeah.
they all died.
就这个地方呢，原来是一个拱形啊，就是那些奴隶被押到这个岸边之后，通过小船再转送到大船上去，然后接着呢被运到美洲。据我们的向导说啊，他说这个地方呢，相当于是他们的政府吧，修了一个这样的通道吧，希望那些当时被贩卖出去的黑人奴隶也能够有机会回到非洲，就通过这个 tunnel 回到非洲。I mean, in the school, if there is a class, the history will
They teach you.
teach students about this trade.
Yes, before they teach us history, but not slave trade.
It's not included.
Not Atlantic slave trade. It's Trans-Sahara.
Trans-Sahara.
Yeah, not this Atlantic slave, not this one.
Why?
I don't know. But now, in most school now don't teach history.
They don't teach history.
Yes, in secondary schools.
就刚刚向导跟我们说呢，就是在尼日利亚的一些学校里面，他们甚至都没有历史课，然后有历史课呢，他们也是只是教那个泛撒哈拉的奴隶贸易，并没有讲这个跨大西洋的那个黑奴贸易啊。我觉得这个事情也是挺遗憾的一个事情啊，他是应该要去提醒后人，要不忘历史，就是避免重蹈覆辙吧。我觉得尼日利亚呢是在1960年获得了独立，而这个国家呢其实是拥有很多的油气资源，它的石油储量呢是全球第10，原油出口量呢也是全球第8，所以它本来是可以过得很好的。但是这些资源带来的收入有80%是落入了英美公司的口袋，只有20%是留给了尼日利亚人，所以其实说起来也是挺尴尬、挺遗憾的一件事情。